Hello, it's Jack Tutor here of Attention Magazine. Welcome to Crucial Listening, the podcast where I speak with musicians and sound artists about 3 albums that are important to them. My guest this time is Domingæ, who you may know from the band Föllakzoid, who've released records on Sacred Bones. Domi's new solo record, as Domingæ, is also now out on Sacred Bones. It's called E. It's that conjoined AE letter. I think it's pronounced E. It's appropriate that there's not the distinct pronunciation, at least I'm too naive to know it. Because this record, even though it's driven by rhythms that feel extracted from techno, these insistent, repetitive thumps, the other stuff that's going on the record, including Domi's voice and these synthetic textures, seem to be hovering in like a superposition. They don't seem to settle into something specific. They're almost posed like a question. There's this wonderful open-ended sense to these pieces, this state of possibility that never really collapses. Keeps me listening in like a very heightened state, and also makes it very difficult to describe. I'd recommend going over to Domi's Linktree. Actually, I've put that in the show notes, where you can find links to this record. Also on that Linktree is a link to Domi's Transition and Survival Fund. So Domi is currently based in Mexico City. This fund will allow her to move safely over to New York, start a life, and also continue to access transition-related healthcare. So I've included a link in the show notes, and you can also access it via the Linktree as well. If you have any money to spare, then please do send it in the direction of the fund. Okay, Domi was great to speak to. We had a chat about 3 really interesting records, and this one was over a phone line kind of connection, so the quality isn't amazing, but I think you can make everything out just fine, so we're all good. Thank you for listening. As always, please do rate and review the podcast, and here we go. This is Domingæ on Crucial Listening. Hello, Domi. Welcome to Crucial Listening.
Hi.
Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, it's my first podcast.
Is it really? Well, glad
Yeah.
to be the first. That's great. You are here to talk about 3 important albums, as all my guests are. So before we get stuck into those, I want to ask about your new record. As we're discussing prior, I think within English it would be pronounced E. It's A and E together. And I understand that the foundations for this record came together during your artistic residence in Yamaguchi, Japan. Is that right? At a Minka?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I went to Japan before the pandemic started to release an album with DJ Nobu. He did a remix of our latest Föllakzoid release. And he put it out in his label he has in Japan, and we went there and did 3 gigs. One in Yamaguchi, one in another city I can't remember, and one in Tokyo. Then after that, I was supposed to stay there for 3 weeks or something in a really like a traditional farmhouse, there those paper doors and tatamis instead of beds and that kind of thing. Super fun, but preparing the score for a runway, the new collection of Kosaburo, which is a frequent collaborator and friend from Japan. That's a designer. And then the whole world crumbled, and I had to sort of escape from Asia to Mexico, allegedly going to Europe to make the tour, but then that also crumbled. So I stayed here, kind of stranded.
What did the process look like in that initial stage in Japan? So how much of the release came together then during that initial phase in Japan?
It was pretty like subconscious, like the way the whole project came together, because it never started with the idea of like making a record. I like did some synthesizer layers for this runway, and then another artist from Japan called Shoko Yoshida asked me to do a remix for her that came out like a couple days ago, actually.
Oh, cool.
So while developing the synthesizers, then I developed like kicks and like the rhythm sequences. And after that, also in between, I think the label asked us to release a song or a remix for like a, like sort of like support compilation the record did just when the pandemic started, to get some money for the artists that were like canceling tours and all.
Mm-hmm.
So I found myself with a bunch of material, like I had layers, I had rhythm sequences, I had like parts, and I don't know, like I waited a couple of months, and before realizing the whole market or music market wasn't like activating anytime soon.
Uh-huh.
I figured like I can make something, like it should be something out of it, I
mean, one thing I did want to flag up specifically is the voice on the record. I think it's the thing that came out and protruded to me in these initial listens most immediately.
In the record or the videos?
Oh, well, both. Actually, that's a very good point. I mean, I listened to the record first a few times before I saw the videos. But we can certainly talk about both. I mean, we'll start with the record. I mean, the treatment of the voice is so interesting. It feels to me when I'm listening to it, it's got this kind of non-spatial element. It's hard to work out where it's coming from or where it specifically exists in time. I mean, talk to me about bringing the voice into this new record.
Yeah, it was pretty important to me, like because this record was a possibility, like in opposition to the work I've created with Föllakzoid, which is like an identity on its own, and it's like pretty ethereal, and voices are usually like numbers sang in different languages by computers or stuff like this. Mm-hmm. So in this jazz, at first I wanted to put some vocals, and I gave some thought into it, and I used so it's mostly a mix of my voices doing like you would say like a duet with. Are you familiar with the Japanese anime series called Evangelion?
No, I'm not. No.
Yeah, so it's like a pretty famous 80s, 90s series that includes like biotechnological, like huge robots and persons that have to be paired with these robots and to fight for the survival of mankind or something in a like post-apocalyptic scenario. And the main character of this series, Evangelion, it's a girl, like a being called Rei. And in one point in the series, she has like a poem about like mankind and existence and conscience. So I took parts of that poem and I did like a duet, with effects with my voice. And also there's a track that includes the opening track from Pharmacon's album. So it's like the first track, there's like a duet, you would say, of like breathing, like it's her inhalations and my exhalations and her exhalations and my. So it's you would say it's like my voice mixed with two basic samples, one Pharmacon's voice and the other one Ray from Evangelion.
Wow. Okay, that's great. You also mentioned the video as well, and as you say,
and then for the video, I like added this whole like another like narrative level to it, which is like first time ever I've acted or shown my, or talked or whatever.
Yeah. So the video, you brought in a narrative, and obviously the video as well, I understand you co-directed. At what point did it become clear that you wanted both the visual and the narrative element to go alongside the release as well?
Oh, it was just like a snowball kind of situation. Like the synth became a synth with rhythm, and then they both became songs, and then the songs became albums, and then albums became visuals, and then all together became like sort of like a sum up sci-fi narration. And for me, it's interested like the topic of like mechanical like mechanical animal transition a whole humanity is going through, you know, like a very like subtle but steady pace. And to do a parallel with that, a parallel with the futuristic like representations we already know, and also with the more like ancestral representations that precede us, you know, and in the present, like what specifically like trans women or persons are like going through in terms of like body modification and like how that improves or reinforces the way we process, you know, mundane situations. So it's like a three-sided metaphor put in a very simple way of like an avatar being awoken in a like post-apocalyptic like situation, looking either for like remains of life or death or whatever, just to scan and to send over to the source.
I'll put links actually to the videos. I see they went up very recently, so I'll include links in the show notes of the podcast. One final question before we get to your records, and this might be a question that's perhaps too big and nebulous to tackle within this fleeting intro, but I wanted to pick up on a line within your press release, which isn't a direct quote actually from yourself, so hopefully it's an accurate articulation of your process.
Yeah,
but
let me see.
It mentions that you use the process of unlearning and uninstalling previously established creative softwares in order to achieve dissolution. I mean, I've seen you speak about unlearning and uninstalling before in the context of Föllakzoid, but I'm wondering, I mean, is this the same area for you? And if so, I mean, how does it deviate given that it's your solo project as opposed to, as you say, Föllakzoid being its own beast?
Oh yeah, so it is the like same composition or as I like to call it, like decomposition method. Like I've been working on my whole life with Föllakzoid, but when applied to my like solo work, it certainly like opened more like had like a more possibilities or like a wider range of possibilities. So the whole idea is to like break patterns of either composition or like dramatic arc that are usually like super unconscious in authors. You know, when you're making something like this whole notion of painting inside the square or outside the square. So I really tend to question the format beforehand. I start with the work at hand, either if it's a movie or a song or a concert or an outfit, you know. So when applied to my own my living present and my own person, it certainly like opened like a wider range, like I was saying, and allowed me to play with elements that are just not like, that are too personal to be like in the Föllakzoid like identity, you know. So I was able to like to articulate like concepts and images like of myself, and also like musically to put some voices on it, and that gave the whole album like a different, like I believe like a more integral representation of what the author, in my case, me in this case, I mean, was or is.
Well, it's wonderful. I love the release. I think you mentioned for you as the person who made this release, there was a snowballing effect that brought it into being. Certainly that's also been reflected in a sort of snowballing experience that I've had listening to the record and ingesting the videos and also speaking to you now. I really encourage the listeners to both listen to the record and also as well indulge in all the aspects around this release. It's fantastic.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, I encourage, if they feel so inclined, to check it out too.
Now, Domi, let's go to your important records. Before we get stuck into the selection specifically, I like to ask about how you came to your 3 important records. So was there a particular way that you thought about or understood the word important to come up with the list that you did?
Yeah, like I've been asked, I've been put in this position in my life in interviews before, and so I went like down different paths in the past. Like, for example, like the first time I got into this best best three things for you. You go really like profound, you know, and try like do like a soul search and just not to leave anything that's really important, you know. So then no ghosts will get mad at you, you know. But so I tried that in the past, and I've done it like a couple of times, I guess, for magazines or something. But in this case, I was like sort of like an anxiety-producing situation to pick out the three records. So I just went instinctively, like figure like you know, there's records that like at least me, like I rely on like transversal to time, you know, and I guess these three albums have been with me like through thick and thin, like for a while. So I guess they deserve to be like named in some sort of
oh, great
ranking. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
These records have been like steady good friends with me. That's the way I would put it.
Nice.
They've been like good companions.
I'll let you pick whichever order you want to go in, Domi. Which one do you want to talk about first?
I really don't care. I guess we could start with the oldest I've known from these three, which is the record like Blues Run the Game by Jackson C. Frank. Are you familiar with him?
Well, I am now. Holy moly, this record is unbelievable.
Oh my God, it's so beautiful. So I don't know, like I might be like super weird because I didn't do my homework regarding this record, but like for what I know, like this guy was like a super low key, like super like mystic voice, you know, like it's so beautiful but yet so like painful, right? And it's like I don't really like blues, you know, because it's like very manly portrayal of pain, I think, in most cases, like a rock and roll sort of like, you know, motorcycle, you know. Yes. And in this case, the guy is like is super like super sensitive, or super. He has like a vulnerability that is super beautiful. And the first time I heard it was like I believe in the trailer for the movie The Brown Bunny of Vincent Gallo. That is just like a one take shot from like a inside of a truck, you know, with the window like window shield sort of like dirty and like showing like a sunset in the back, and it really struck the key on me. Like I remember I took the same song to work on the trailer for my first film, and since then it's been there like to like I don't know, like contain me would be a good word. Like whenever you want to like enjoy sad songs, you know, this is the kind of like music I go to.
Are there songs in particular that you connect with most prominently on this one?
Oh yeah, like the main hit I would say is Milk and Honey. But because I don't know, that song is just like a lullaby that was written in heaven and finished in hell. So it's like super, like the full scale of what a lullaby is for me. Yeah. And then he has like another one that is like what gives the album the name, like Blues Runs the Game. That even though most blues musicians talk about the blues and being sad and the blues, it never sounds. And this could be like just me, you know, I don't want to get the whole blues people against me. But I believe when Jackson C. Frank talks about the blues, you can feel like he's sad, you know?
Oh, my word. Yeah, absolutely.
Instead of just talking about sadness because he's tough.
Right, yeah. From what I felt when listening to it, I was like, it reaches a level of... It's not melodrama, clearly, because it feels very sincere, but it reaches a level of intensity that I don't think you'd probably go to unless you were properly feeling it. Because
yeah, it's like a thing the first like Nick Drake albums have, or like even Moondog, you know, that it's people that are either like dead or were like crazy, or they're like really not after like fame or material stuff, you know. They're just like singing out of because they have no other like possibility. They're like sort of trapped in their talent.
Yeah, I think there's a line on that first track which is, so I'm going to mince it, but basically the sentiment is that when I'm not asleep, I'm crying.
Yeah.
But the way it's phrased is I mean, it really does cut.
Yeah, it's like it's like the same emotion that, I don't know, could create like a thrash metal inspiration, like I want to be alone, but he puts it just in a very kind way. It's like it reminds me of the French expression for story. When they say story, they say it like je suis désolé, which means like it like connects with the word like desolation, which is like a nature. It's like the natural state of living beings. Like we are born alone, and then we like deny the fact our whole life, and then we die alone. So the whole idea of like building, like raising the conscience of himself and the listeners by making it more beautiful, that indeed we are alone, or we want to be like truly alone instead of like this fake notion of companionship like a plant or a living being can give you.
Feels like he's running from that sentiment as well. When he talks about getting boats to London and being followed by the blues, it's like that sentiment is inexorably following him from wherever he goes. But Domi, are you someone who connects to lyricism usually? Is this an exception, or do lyrics tend to strike a connection with you?
No, like I am certainly not. And with this album, like I must have heard it like a million times before I even like checked out what he was talking about.
Right.
It's more of like the lullaby aspect of it. He has like a sort of like witchery invocation, put the baby to sleep sort of like mood in his melodies that really got a grip on me.
How long ago was it that you discovered this record?
Oh, it was like 10 years ago or something.
Wow. And has your relationship with it changed over that time at all?
No, it's one of those like foundational, sort of like very, very good companions. Yeah, like it gets to me every time. Like I haven't got like tired or like over it at all. It's one of those records I also don't listen to much, I just like visit them when in need. Yeah,
for sure. And when you think back to your memories of listening to this record, I mean, what kind of experiences or memories or places come to mind when you think of listening to this one?
Oh, well, it's a very evocative autumn sunset, sort of like imaginary, what it provokes in me. And I certainly like listen to these songs while nostalgic, while melancholic, while in love, while brokenhearted. So it's funny to see me change like anemically, through the course of years, but see the album like remain steady in its gravitational, melancholic yet beautiful, vibe.
Yeah. I don't know if you read much about Jackson C. Frank as well, but his story is heartbreaking.
Yeah. I really have, but don't know it by without reading it. But yeah, it is pretty tragic.
Yeah. I mean, it sort of underlines the sincerity of where he's coming from. There's no doubting it after reading about his life experiences.
It's no bullshit in it.
Yeah. And it was recorded in less than 3 hours as well.
I think it was recorded by Paul Simon, isn't it?
That's right.
From Simon and Garfunkel, yeah. As annoying as he can be as a person, like he certainly had his ears well focused.
Me and room service, honey. Me and room service, babe. Me and room service, well, we're living a life of sin. When I'm not drinking, baby, you are on my mind. When I'm not sleeping, honey, when I ain't sleeping, mama.
Well, Domi, let's go to your second important record now.
Yeah, we could go like either with Ryoichis or One O Tricks Point Nevers.
Cool. Well, we have started from the oldest, I guess. Let's continue going chronologically and go for One O Tricks Point Never. So you've gone for Replica here.
Yeah, that record I got without knowing what it was. I remember I was like in New York visiting the Sacred Bones Records warehouse, and it's paradise. Like it's like the warehouse of like them, and also like the record label Capture Tracks and Mexican Summer, and I don't know who else. But thing is, there's a lot of records. So it was like my first time there. I remember like a long time ago. And so I was like getting like free records and stuff, super excited. And then I see this cover, you know, it's like a mirrored skull in the cover.
Uh-huh.
And I freaked out, and I saw a T-shirt, and I also got it. And then I took it home, like whatever. Like a month later, I was in my home in Chile, so I checked it out, and I really had no idea what it was. Like I was like wearing the T-shirt like every day, but I was like unaware of who it was or what it was. And since then, like the record was like on a constant spinning in my turntable at home, like for months and years. And till I actually figured like maybe I should get like into this guy and like figure out like how his other works and stuff. And then I figured it's like this genius producer whose name I don't really know. Is Lopatin, maybe?
That's right, Daniel Lopatin, yeah.
Daniel Lopatin, yeah. And I'm like a distant but super like truthful admirer. But I'm like a bad fan. Like I don't know the chronology of his work or stuff like this. But because I'm just a bad fan in general. But it doesn't mean like I'm not like emotionally involved with the music, you know. I have like my own personal relationship with the work. I think he would be relieved to know that his creations have an identity on its own and they don't connect directly to the author, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, that's where the connection matters, right?
And so, yeah, this album, I don't know, it's great. Like, it was super funny for me, like the first video we released in this promotion for the new record came on YouTube, and someone, there was a comment there saying, like, it's like, if One the Tricks Point Never and Filmmaker had a stand with One the Tricks Point Never, no, with Affect Twin or something.
What?
And I don't know, I think it's a pretty far but precise stretch what the guy commented there, because I really love I really love One Tricks Point Never. I am not really a fan of Affect or Filmmaker. I didn't know him. But yeah, I believe we certainly share like a destructuring or like switching format or mixing way that is like unconventional, but in a trance-inducing way.
Yeah, I mean, particularly on this record, I guess the later ones, I don't know what you think of this, but as he starts to progress, I think the trance element for me kind of goes away. There's this really vibrant state of distraction that kind of comes in, but this one seems so much more loop based. I hadn't actually listened to this one. I've listened to like R+7 onwards.
Yeah, that was funny because it's pretty much, as you say, like a loop constructed album. But and as I told you, I kept it on my turntable constantly. So most times I didn't know if like the needle was like looping, you know, or something, you know. And sometimes it did get stuck, you know, my needle. So I have like a really deranged notion of what the album really is. Like I've hardly listened to it like digitally. It's always like been on the vinyl. So, but I like that. I like that. It surprises me when I hear the real track, you know, that it's like actually different from what I thought.
What is it about Replica that you think maybe made it connect with you? I mean, as you said,
I think it was hard for me to figure it out, but to like understand it, you know, like I'm talking simple stuff like where the song started or finished or whether I liked it or not, you know, or if it was a song or you know, but that whole like uncomfortable situation. You would say that the record puts me in has become sort of like a guideline of my work as well. Like I don't do music that I feel satisfied with or that I enjoy. It's more like I put together and assemble these things, pushing to a place where I like don't understand or like feel uncomfortable, but in a way that I like it. You know, it's not uncomfortable like to look for like an uncomfortable feeling. It's more like it's like the embracing sort of like entropy.
So that's what you perceive within Replica then, this, I guess, this inability to close the loop on what it is or whether you like it.
Yeah, it's the inability to close the loop, but certainly it's a very like well-placed, paced together sound and tracks and samples and everything. But it has this edge to it, like this abyss feeling of like the mix is gonna like fall or reset or cut at any moment. You know, it's very like fragile yet super heavy.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned actually that when you perceive a parallel between your music and one of Trick's Point Never, it's in this, I can't remember exactly what you said, but I guess removing the original references or shedding that original context. I mean,
yeah, it's what I said. It has to do with like the pursuit of some sort of like stable instability, sort of like vulnerable equilibrium.
Do you have any thoughts on why that in itself is appealing to you as either someone who listens to music or someone who makes it?
I think the whole the medium is the message notion from the 90s, you know, in advertising sort of work. That whole notion, the subtextual part of the text and the format part of the art has always been more striking to me than the actual content said or the painted, you know. I've always find it more appealing, or more than I find it more appealing, I guess is the way my brain works. Like I'm always like open eyes for like a subtextual or counter format or countercultural or resonances in art or in knowledge than I am into like the actual words or paints expressed, you know. The meta thing is what's appealing to me usually. Meta musical, meta linguistical, meta formatting, meta cultural, meta existing.
I mean, I'm thinking with that most recent Föllakzoid record, I'm always struck when track durations are so specific in a way that implies that they were asserted above the content of the song.
Yeah, right? they were like channeled beforehand.
Yeah, right.
Like a forced, I don't know how you call it in English, when you have like a forced concept you have to develop.
Yeah,
in
totally.
Art, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, it for me, it kind of feels like it brings this almost arbitrary element to.
Yeah, I want to make it revolves around the notion of like programming and being programmed and how to like level up the whole like equilibrium that might be like in an illusion way sort of displaced, you know, to make you believe that you are either in control or that you are either not in control. So I really try to like set the table real like equilibrated before we go on in one of these creative pursuits. So the machine or the simulation is fairly demanded to do its part.
I mean, when you talk about reaching for this meta, you know, the thing above, I guess you could say, is that where you're directed? I mean, what drives you on that trajectory? Do you have any thoughts on like what it is, why that's so compelling?
Yeah, I believe there's like two ways to like possible outcomes of true art happening, you know, independent of its form. I would say one would be like to be remembered, you know, like the Nobel guy that created TNT, and a lot of people died because of his creation. So he made this whole like human prize of peace and stuff to just clean his name. That's one of the possible outcomes when you create something super universal, to be like stuck with your creation. And there is the other path, which is like the dissolution of the author. Like whenever like a really universal invention has come out, like the wheel, for example, whoever invented the wheel got dissolved in its creation by its universality, you know? So I think, if you ask me, like, why am I like inclined into like breaking formats as well as like setting patterns for the work to come, is already like programmed differently is in order to dissolve authorship. And I'm in a constant pursuit of creation without leaving footprints.
I love that. I mean, I feel like that I can bring that background as well into Replica as well. I mean,
yeah, right. It's like the record is making itself.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he talks about his process actually in reference, I think, to this album as looking for old things that are meaningful and then restructuring and rearranging it to interfere with the original narrative and creating this new
it's pretty
poetry.
Similar the way I proceed then.
Huh, yeah. So maybe that's another means by which it connects with what you do. I mean, so have you checked out records other than Replica, and what's your relationship like with his other work?
Oh, I've heard. I have another vinyl that it has like a blue square, like a minimalistic paint that I don't remember the name of, that I really love. and I've seen. I'm a very big fan of his sound scores for films,
yes,
like the Uncut Gems. The maximalism in that crazy movie was like mind blowing, really next level stuff. And I checked also he's like a mainstream producer, like he does songs for Rosalia or The Weeknd or stuff like this. And I think he maintains the whole chaotic or dissolved sort of structures, even though if he's adventuring in more mainstream sound.
Yes, yeah. Which I guess is the reason he's there, right? Is that they want that chaos to be pulling at the edges of the format of the pop
and
song.
I think it's beautiful. I'm a super fan of the pop and the soundtracks and the experimental records. I think he's genius.
Have you seen him live?
No, I haven't had the chance. When I was in Japan, I went to a super cool bar called Nightingale, a super tiny spot that some artists go after their shows, and there was a piano side by him and stuff like that. And I was like, that's the closest I've been there. I was in town when he was playing there, but I didn't went to the show.
Oh, rats. Okay. I mean, if I was to play a little extract of one of the songs here, do you have a favourite? I guess it's strange because if it's haphazard the way that they're presented to you on that vinyl, I don't know if you have a particular favourite song.
No, I don't think I have really. I don't think I have. I always listen to the album on its entirety.
Domi, let's go to your final selection here. So, give me the name of it and tell me a bit about why it's important to you.
The final selection was the Async by Ryuichi Sakamoto. And I as well, I'm going to go in a clean now. I've never been a thorough Ryuichi Sakamoto fan. So I know he has really good fans, and I'm really not one of them because I followed him sort of recently. This record is a bunch of years old as well, but it was the first thing that struck with me was the concept. I think it was super genius and mind blowing. The whole naming whatever wasn't in a specific kind of synchronicity. Rhythms are synchronic, right? So you have you could do salsa or hip hop or whatever, and they're all rhythms, but they have genres, right? But till that point, more or less, of course, atonal and asynchronic music and experimental and noise existed, but they weren't typified. They didn't have a name. And this whole concept for me, it meant if you're now not into doing a specific kind of rhythm and you are into doing asynchronic, then you could go and explain it further with more detail. I'm doing it an asynchronic, atonal, atmospheric. It's no longer just experimental.
Right.
And that whole naming the unnamed really clashed in my head, so genius. And then when listening to the album, I was super a detective, sort of figuring is this synchronic? You know, if I find like any synchronic bits in this, and the album has like a really pulsating gravitational core, you would say, that keeps the parts together as, while the album is like developing. Yet I'm pretty sure like it's never on sync.
Right.
So it's a slightly twisted, but it holds together, and the whole like aura of his music that is super like calming and like dreamy in a Japanese sort of like melody, like works still, even if he's like really like in a very subtle and evil way, like destroying synchronicity.
Wow, that's really cool. I'd never even considered the title in that context. That's fabulous.
Yeah, I invite you to listen to it and like to tell me like if it's on sync or out of sync. I'm pretty sure it's slightly every element is out of sync, and as the record like evolves, he also like starts playing with linguistic elements like phrases that are like entangled with the rhythm in an async way, and the rhythm is entangled with an atmosphere, and they're all like crumbling in an organic way. It's very like entropical. And as the record progresses, he puts a phrase, and the phrase has a meaning and also a language, and then the phrase overlaps with another phrase, or probably the same phrase but in a different language and in a different time frame. Yes. So it gets a musicality out of concept, out of languages. So it's like a pretty complex work to be that smooth. I also imagine like his old audience, like getting the new Ryoichi record and putting it on the living room and just like being super smooth by it, Yeah. So it's like a really like I don't know. It's like a malice, like intention, like to get it infiltrated in like in all sorts of spaces, like the most like meta listeners to the most like entire listeners of his work, and they all like being numbed by its beauty.
Yeah, I love the reference you make to the text in the middle, which is repeated in different languages. I guess that's another quite wonderful demonstration of asynchronicity, where you've got no
it's like
language
asynchronicity. It's musical asynchronicity, and it's also like meanings, interaction, and we can avoid the fact that both meaning and musical have like an entangled sort of like product, out of the addition. That is like a third element of who knows. It gets complex.
What do you think of that? There's another, I think it's a poem that's actually, there's several, isn't there? But there's one which is quite plain and quite stark, basically about the finite nature of life and experience.
I think it's super in line with the whole notion. And I'm not sure about this, but I believe Mr. Sakamoto was going through like a heart, like a health situation before he did this album. So I always found it really like admirable for him to like come out of that like intense sort of health situation, and like still wanted to pull off like the album he just released and this one and his latest work, like as new like groundbreaking conceptual things for civilization, instead of just doing like a greatest hits sort of like tour, which he could.
Absolutely, yeah. He's definitely at that point. I mean,
he's like a lot of hits, and music, and he could like give us that for the rest of his life, and we will all be like super happy. Still, he was like still super, like creative and like pulling him to do like this like groundbreaking work that the world was missing.
And also, there's a remix record. Did you check that out at all?
Yeah, I heard it, but that's amazing. Yeah, I think there might be like a 106 remix.
Yeah, there is. Yeah,
there is,
what do you make
right?
of that?
I love it. My dream. I wish I could make one.
Yeah, it's a good lineup on that remix record.
It's like the best of the best.
Yeah. Wow.
Really cool.
So, are there any other records by Sakamoto? You mentioned that you're not a super fan, but is there any other records that you connect with of his?
I really like the song he made for the David Bowie film in the 80s, like the Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence.
Yeah.
I think that song is it's like a proper, like it has like a drum cadence, like a trap cadence to it that is super forward for the times. Like the kick he uses is like super, I don't know, like hip hop in a way, but it was way before hip hop.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I love that track, and I always think it's like an example of how visionary or how ahead of his time Ryoichi's always been.
Yeah. And is this a record that you mentioned with, say, for example, Jackson C. Frank? It's not a record that you play particularly often. I mean, how often does Async enter your orbit, and where do you tend to listen to it as well?
Oh, it's a record I work with. It's a record I put to like put some order to my thoughts, to organize. It's also a good record for when the dinner is over, for after dinner, chats and stuff like that. And it's also, I don't know, like it's really like a good companion if you ask me. Like I put it for like working, but I also put it when it's like music that listens to you, like my album, I think. More than music you have to listen. So it's like it creates an environment where you can sort of like listen to yourself while listening to something else.
One more question for you, Domi, which is, do you have any particular favourite means, regardless of the record, any favourite means of listening to a record, maybe one that allows you to really dive in and scrutinise and feel closest to a record? I don't know, is there a particular environment?
Any ways of listening? I guess that's on the record side, if you ask me. It's super hard, I guess only like Zeppelin or Sonic Youth or like Sabbath or Beatles, like records that are super like integral on its own, that are made out of tracks. Those records I have no problem in listening to. But in other kinds of music, like electronic or whatever, when the album is not built like a one song structure, it's super. I don't usually go from the first song to the last one of anything. So I believe for me to dive into the record has to be like sort of like an attraction, gravitational thing on its own, like either Replicas or Jackson's or Ryoichi. The whole album seems like it's revolting on itself, like going back to the same arpeggio in the case of the guitar, or going back to the same loop in the case of Replica, or going back into the same like quotation of the displaced sounds in the case of Ryoichi.
Wonderful. What a awesome way to wrap it up. I mean, Domi, one thing I want to mention before we go is your Transition and Survival Fund on GoFundMe.
Oh, yes. Thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah. So could you just give listeners an idea of what that is? I'll include a link in the show notes as well.
Oh, yeah. So it's like a pledge, like a global pledge, asking for help to help me pay for all the costs and treatment involved with transitioning. And also, I'm stuck here. I'm living here in Mexico at the moment. I'm pretty okay when I'm home. I have like a safe place just for everyone to know. But the whole environment in Mexico is pretty adverse for women and for trans women specifically. It's ranked by humanitarians as like the second worst place to be a trans woman in the world. So the pledge is like both for like getting finance for the treatments, and hopefully to move to New York, where I can like get like a more like safe environment to do my things, and also get access to better quality like treatment and whatever. And this is all organized by a person I met the last time I was in New York, Sam Emerson, that is like super connected with non-government like organizations that help like trans women reaching out. And so it's like a really like a promising environment to continue my life, I guess.
Thank you. Like I say, I'll include a link in the show notes there. And Domi, thank you so much for talking through these records and your own record.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Super fluid, super pleasure to talk to you.
Fantastic. And to everyone listening, I'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thanks for having me.